The moment I said it, I knew something was wrong. We were all sitting around the big dining table at my in-laws' house, the kind of Sunday dinner where my mother-in-law makes her pot roast and everyone talks over each other and nobody notices when I refill my own glass. I had been helping her in the kitchen for 3 hours, peeling, stirring, setting the table with the good china she only uses when she wants to impress herself. My husband sat in the living room the whole time watching the game with his brother. That's just how it goes in that house. I was thinking we could all fly out of Charlotte, I said, setting down the bread basket. Save us probably 2 hours of driving if we meet there instead of caravanning from here. My sister-in-law, the younger one, the one with the sharp laugh and the sharper opinions, looked up from her phone. She glanced sideways at my brother-in-law. Something passed between them. Quick, coded. The kind of look that has a whole conversation inside it. What? I asked. My mother-in-law set down her fork very carefully. Sweetheart, she said. Not unkindly, but with that particular gentleness people use when they've already decided something and just have to get through the telling of it. The lake house only sleeps so many people. I waited. We thought it might be nice, she continued, smoothing her napkin, to make it a family thing this year. Just the immediate family. I looked at my husband. He was looking at his plate. I am immediate family, I said. I'm Marcus's wife. There was a pause, so specific, so loaded with everything nobody wanted to say, that I actually heard the refrigerator hum from the kitchen. My father-in-law cleared his throat. We just meant blood family, sweetheart, you understand. I did not understand. I sat there for the rest of that dinner, and ate pot roast I had helped prepare, and passed the rolls and answered questions about my job and laughed at the right moments, and I did not understand a single thing about how I had spent 4 years becoming invisible in that house. My name is Laurel. I am 31 years old. I have been married to Marcus for 4 years and with him for 6. I have spent 6 years showing up for a family that has never, not once, shown up for me, and I booked that lake house. That is the part I should probably explain. The trip had been loosely talked about for months. Last Thanksgiving, my mother-in-law mentioned wanting to do a real family summer at some point. Nothing concrete, just one of those ideas that floats around a holiday table. By February, it had gotten more specific. A week in July, the family lake house in the Adirondacks that had been in her family for 30 years. By March, they had dates. By April, they had a plan, and somehow I had become the one executing it. It started small. My mother-in-law asked if I could call the property manager to arrange an early check-in since she doesn't do well with those online portals, so I called. Then she asked if I could get a quote from a boat rental company on the lake, so I did. Then my sister-in-law texted me, not her mother, me, and asked if I could look into catering for the night they wanted to do a big family dinner. Just something casual, she said. Maybe 40 people, she said, as if 40 people is casual. I became the unofficial planner of a vacation I was never invited to attend. By May, I had spent probably 60 hours on that trip. I had coordinated arrival times for 11 family members. I had arranged a pontoon rental and a kayak delivery and a grocery pre-stock from a market 40 minutes from the lake. I had booked a local chef for Saturday evening, a woman named Grace who does these farm-to-table dinners out of her catering business in the area, and negotiated the menu and confirmed the head count twice. I had organized a shuttle from the nearest regional airport because 3 of my husband's cousins were flying in. I had done all of this from my home office, on my lunch breaks, on weekends, using my personal email and my personal phone. Nobody asked me to, but nobody asked me not to either, and everyone kept texting me with questions and treating me like I was on the team. I thought I was on the team. That Sunday dinner was the first week of June. I drove home in silence. Marcus sat in the passenger seat and looked out the window and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't know they felt that way," which was either true or was the gentlest lie he has ever told me, and either way it broke something in me that I am still sorting through. I did not cry until I was in the shower. Then I cried for a long time. The thing about being excluded by a family you married into is that it's not like being left out by strangers. Strangers owe you nothing. A family you have sat with every Christmas, every birthday, every casual Sunday for 6 years. They have taken something from you that you gave freely and in good faith. They know your coffee order and your sister's name and that you don't eat shellfish, and they sat across from you at that table and told you, in the politest possible language, that you do not count. That night I lay in bed and made a list in my head. Everything I had done for that trip. Every call, every email, every hour, and then I thought about what my father-in-law had said, blood family, and something clicked very quietly into place inside me. I did not make a dramatic decision, I just decided to stop. The next morning I called Grace and told her there had been a change in plans and I needed to cancel the Saturday dinner. She was gracious about it and charged only the 20% deposit, which was mine to lose anyway since I put it on my card. I called the boat rental company. I called the shuttle service. I sent a politely worded email to the property manager explaining that I would no longer be the point of contact for the July reservation and she should direct all future communications to my mother-in-law's email address, which I helpfully included. I did not tell anyone I was doing this. I simply handed it back. I want to be precise about something. I did not sabotage anything. I did not cancel reservations other people had made. I did not delete anything or lie to anyone or cause any harm that wasn't reversible. I withdrew the labor that I had volunteered for a trip I was not invited to attend, for a family that had just told me I did not belong to them. Everything I stepped back from was something I had stepped up for on my own. It was mine to walk away from. What I did not account for was how completely they had come to rely on me without ever noticing they were doing it. The first text came from my sister-in-law on a Wednesday in late June. Had I heard back from the chef? She wanted to confirm the menu. I replied, I passed the planning back to your mom. I'm not going to be attending, so I didn't feel right managing the details. 3 minutes later, my mother-in-law called. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message about a misunderstanding and how they had assumed I knew it was going to be a smaller gathering and she was so sorry if the wording at dinner had come across wrong. Her voice was warm and a little flustered and I listened to it twice and then I called her back. I'm not upset, I told her. Which wasn't entirely true, but I was calm. I just realized I shouldn't be planning something I'm not part of. It makes more sense for you to handle it. But you've already done so much, she said. I know, I said. There was a pause. Grace is expecting us, she said. She said she hasn't received any cancellation. She has, I said. I canceled 2 weeks ago. You'll need to rebook if you want her. The silence that followed was a different kind of silence than the one at the dinner table. This one had texture to it, the slow realization of something. The shuttle, she said suddenly. Cancelled. The pontoon rental. You'll want to call soon, actually. July weekends book fast up there. Another pause. Longer. Laurel. I think there's been a miscommunication. There really hasn't, I said, still calm. I understood perfectly. I just decided that if I'm not family, I probably shouldn't be the one making sure the family vacation runs smoothly. That seems fair. I don't know what I expected her to say. What she said was, let me call you back. She did not call me back. My husband's aunt did, the next day, a woman I genuinely like and who has always been kind to me. She said she'd heard there was some confusion about the trip and she wanted me to know that she, personally, had always thought of me as family and she hoped whatever was happening could be sorted out. I thanked her and told her I hoped they had a wonderful trip. Then my brother-in-law texted Marcus, apparently because Marcus came home that evening looking like a man walking into a room he wasn't sure he should enter. We sat at the kitchen table, and I made tea, and he told me his mother had called him and said I had undone the planning for the trip, and she wasn't sure what to do. He said this carefully, watching my face. I withdrew my own work, I said. I didn't undo anything that was theirs. I know, he said. She told me I wasn't family. My dad said that. My mom didn't. Your mom didn't correct him, I said. She smoothed her napkin and changed the subject. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I should have said something. Yes, I said. You should have. That was the hardest conversation we have ever had, Marcus and me. And I am not going to put all of it here because some things belong only to the people who lived them. But I will say that he cried at one point. which I have seen him do twice in 6 years, and I cried too, and by the end of it I didn't feel better exactly, but I felt real. Like something that had been vague and unnamed had finally been given its shape. The trip happened in July. I know because I saw photos on my sister-in-law's Instagram. They looked like they had a good time. The pontoon was rebooked or they rented something else. I don't know. The Saturday dinner was apparently just a cookout. Grace was not there. Marcus did not go. He told his mother 3 weeks before the trip that he and I were going to take our own trip that week, just the two of us, and she could reach him on his cell if she needed anything. She did not respond to that text for 5 days. We went to Asheville. It was Marcus's idea, which mattered to me. We rented a small cabin, booked it myself, obviously in about 20 minutes, and we hiked and we ate well, and we sat on the porch at night listening to the woods, and I let myself feel whatever I needed to feel without managing it. On the third night, I asked him the question I had been holding since June. Did you know? Before that dinner, did you know they didn't consider me family? He was quiet for a long time. The woods did what woods do. I think I knew they had a different definition of it than I did, he said finally. I told myself it didn't matter because I knew who you were to me. It matters, I said. I know that now, he said. I'm sorry it took me this long. I have thought a lot about what my father-in-law meant when he said blood family. I've thought about all the ways families get defined. By DNA, by law, by time, by choice, by showing up, and how easily some people reach for the narrowest possible definition when it suits them. How they'll accept your labor and your presence in your Sunday afternoons and your phone calls to property managers, and still hold the door slightly closed and smile while they do it. I am still married to Marcus. I want to say that clearly. This is not a story about a marriage that ended. It's a story about a woman who finally stopped making herself small enough to fit through a door that was never going to open all the way. We have not resolved things with his parents. There have been phone calls, a dinner, a conversation that went in circles the way those conversations always do. My mother-in-law has apologized in that careful way people apologize when they're sorry you're upset without being sorry for what they did. My father-in-law has not apologized at all. My husband has gotten better at saying things I needed him to say, not perfectly, but better. I have stopped going to Sunday dinners. Not forever, maybe, but for now, I am choosing what I give my time to. I am choosing which table I sit at, and what I carry into the room and what I leave at the door. I spent 6 years handing pieces of myself to people who cataloged them under not really family and smiled and passed the roles. I don't regret helping with that trip. I was good at it and it needed doing, and for a while I believed it meant something. I do not regret stepping back either. Both things were mine to do. What I know now is this: belonging is not something you earn by making yourself useful. It is something that is either given or it isn't. And the people who ask for your help planning their vacations while they're deciding whether you count, they are not confused. They know exactly what they're doing. They're just hoping you won't notice. I noticed. I have been thinking about cause and effect a lot lately. Not in any abstract way, just in the plain, quiet way you think about things when the noise finally settles and you can see clearly what actually happened. I spent 6 years giving freely to people who received what I gave and still kept a small door closed between us. That is not a mystery. That is a pattern. And the thing about patterns is that they do not require malice to do damage. My in-laws were not cartoons. They are real people with their own complicated histories and their own ideas about what family means and who gets to be inside it. I do not think they woke up each morning deciding to diminish me. I think they simply never decided not to. That is its own kind of choice, and it carries its own kind of weight. What I did, stepping back from the planning, returning the labor I had volunteered, was not revenge in the way people mean when they say that word with relish. It was more like clarity made visible. I had been operating under an assumption that turned out to be wrong, and once I knew it was wrong, I stopped operating under it. That is not cruelty. That is honesty. The discomfort my mother-in-law felt when she called the chef and found the booking gone. That discomfort was the first real consequence of a decision that had been made weeks earlier at that dinner table. The two things were connected. They had always been connected. I just made the connection visible. I think about what it took to make that phone call to Grace and cancel the dinner. It was not dramatic. My hands did not shake. I just picked up the phone and did the thing that needed doing, and I think that steadiness, that ability to act from a place of self-respect rather than self-pity, is something I had been building for longer than I realized. Every time I stayed quiet at that table and drove home in silence and cried in the shower, and showed up again the next Sunday anyway, something in me was accumulating. Not bitterness, exactly. More like knowledge. The kind you can only earn by living through something slowly enough to actually understand it. Marcus cried that night at the kitchen table, and so did I, and that conversation, uncomfortable and long and going places neither of us had planned to go, was the most honest thing we had done in years. That matters. Difficulty that is faced directly tends to leave something useful behind. Difficulty that is avoided just moves into the walls of a house and waits. Laurel, this version of me, the one writing this now, is not harder than she used to be. I don't think that's the right word. I'm clearer. I know what I'm willing to carry and what belongs to someone else. I know that showing up, cooking, planning, organizing, refilling glasses, none of that earns you a seat at a table where the decision about your seat was already made. The only thing that changes that is saying so out loud and then letting the silence after be whatever it needs to be. I did not get the family I thought I was marrying into. I got something more complicated and more honest. And I got a week in Asheville with a man who is still figuring out how to be better and who is trying. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, quite a lot.